I'm Eric Parker. This morning on CT21, major concerns over local mask mandates. The governor leaving it up to each of the state's 169 towns and cities to create their own rules. But some say it doesn't go far enough to protect people. What more can be done? And the state's fall fair season is getting underway after a year-long break. But with COVID concerns, what will things look like this year? And you've seen the smoke and haze from those western wildfires. Local firefighters stepped up to help battle the fires, and now they've returned home. We're talking to two of those brave men and women in today's Sunday Spotlight. It's all ahead this Sunday morning, August the 22nd. CT21 starts right now.
From Channel 3, this is Connecticut's most watched current affairs program, CT21, with Eric Parker. Sponsored by Hartford Healthcare.
Thanks for being with us on this Sunday morning. We begin this morning with concerns over people masking up in Connecticut. Governor Lamont has left it up to individual towns and cities to choose if they want to implement a local mask mandate, especially indoors. But the governor's guidance has faced criticism, with some local leaders saying they would prefer a more broad-based approach to better protect people and to avoid confusion. Joining me this morning is the South Windsor town manager, Michael Maniscalco, and David Collins, a columnist with the Day of New London. Mr. Maniscalco, I want to talk to you first. We know that you've implemented a mask mandate in your town. Why'd you take that action?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. We've been monitoring and keeping track of the trajectory of how things have been going for infection rates as well as hospitalization rates in the region. And they're definitely heading in the wrong direction. And that's why we made the decision to implement the mask mandate.
David Collins, you wrote a column last week for the Day in New London that was very critical of the governor and basically saying he was wimping out by not having a statewide mask mandate. Among the things in your column, you say he lost his way, he ducked his responsibility, he continues to fail to do his job. You're not going to be a columnist very long if you don't write some pointed words, but those are tough words for the governor. Why did you take that action?
It's a public health crisis. He knows it. In this situation, when the CDC was recommending these kinds of mandates in the past, in the beginning of the pandemic, he took those steps, and now he's shirking his responsibility. I think he thinks it's an unpopular thing, and he's maybe worried about the politics of it, but it's not right. I mean, we're one state, and this is a health crisis that goes across town borders, and he's the chief executive, and he should be making these decisions.
Isn't the tradition in Connecticut that there are these 169 little kingdoms all with their own rules? There's no county government. We don't have county sheriffs or courts. So isn't there some basis that maybe it should be up to people like Mr. Maniscalco to decide what's best for his town?
There are some things that go across town borders, and certainly COVID is going across town borders. Every town and city in the state isn't going to have their own gun laws. We're not all going to decide to erect tolls or not erect tolls. I mean, there are certain things that have a statewide impact and that need to be dealt with in a statewide manner, and this is one of them. And certainly the governor has the resources at hand that town managers and city officials don't have. I mean, he has a full public health department. He has access to national experts and statistics, and it's his job. It's his decision that he should be making, and he's not. He's shirking his responsibility.
One of the points you made, Mr. Collins, was that the biggest group that may be affected here is children, many of whom are too young to get the vaccine. We saw a lot of people say that when COVID came, for better or worse, the governor seemed to hit his stride. He seemed to become a leader, had a lot of respect, a lot of popularity among the public for how he was handling it. Do you think this is a big knock to that, and do you think he's really letting those kids down?
He's certainly letting the kids down. He's really letting down all the municipal leaders around the state that he's forcing to make these decisions when they don't have the resource to do it. And he's passing the buck. And yes, he's letting the children down. Unvaccinated people, they're vulnerable. They're just as vulnerable as we all were at the beginning of the pandemic. And for him to now sort of back away, and I think it looks like decide that it's an unpopular decision, and he doesn't want to risk that sort of making that unpopular decision for his political capital. It's really, really troubling. And we have a mayor in New London, Democratic mayor, who literally begged him to step in. It's a small city. It's 7 miles long. The mayor there, and he did finally issue his own order, and the neighboring town of Groton issued an order, but it doesn't have the impact when all of the surrounding suburban towns also have mandates that have to be followed. So because it doesn't respect city orders, and the governor should know that.
Mr. Maniscalco, you might be the perfect example for what Mr. Collins is saying. If you look at part of South Windsor, you have the heavy shopping area there. And I think probably people who have lived in town their whole life might turn a corner and not be positive if they're in South Windsor or Manchester. So does that leave you, and probably other parts of your town as well, does that leave people sort of in limbo if you've done something that the neighboring town didn't do?
Correct. So, I think just to go back, first of all, to one other point prior to that is the idea that our residents don't shop in other towns, our residents don't work in other towns, and residents from other towns don't work and shop here is incredibly naive. Our community and our residents across the state of Connecticut travel across community borders on a regular basis. By having 169 different rules, it creates 169 different scenarios where people can be confused as to how they can be implemented and taken into effect. We've been trying to work with municipalities surrounding us to get not only put a mask mandate in place for our community, but for some of our surrounding neighbors. That's been a mixed bag of results as we move forward. Our only hope is that other people will jump on board and move forward with that. And hopefully, in the end, the governor will step up to the plate and actually issue a mask mandate for the entire state.
Well, we saw before you issued your mask mandate in town, you did put out a statement together with East Windsor and Windsor Locks trying to do some regional governing and say that it was strongly encouraged that people wore masks indoors prior to your mandate coming out. Is that an important part of your role, trying to reach out to those neighboring communities? If it's not going to be statewide, at least have it be one big area?
Correct. So, one of the things that I think about, at least as I was going through that process and the thinking behind myself, is it only serves our community better if the communities around us also are following in a similar scenario. As it was stated earlier, the pandemic doesn't respect municipal borders or any boundaries at all. And the idea that it only benefits South Windsor if another community like East Windsor or Manchester or East Hartford or one of our other bordering communities jumps on board and moves forward with a mandate as well, because it only keeps our residents safer and their residents safe as well.
David Collins, I just have a couple of moments left. I just want to ask you, obviously, and if anyone who reads your columns, as I do every time they're printed in the day, knows you have some criticism of the Lamont administration. Do you think moving forward that they'll be able to get their feet back under him?
I hope this isn't a political calculation. I don't understand what it is otherwise, though. But I certainly hope it is, that he's not playing with people's health and the state's health because of the politics of it, because some people are tired of the pandemic and they don't want to see another mask mandate. That would be sort of a sad commentary on the governor's actions.
All right, David Collins from the Day of New London and Mike Maniscalco, the South Windsor town manager. I appreciate both of you being with us here on CT 21. Coming up, Connecticut firefighters joining the battle against western wildfires. Two of them will share their experience later during our Sunday Spotlight. But before that, fall fairgoers are itching to get out for the start of the agricultural fair season. But with COVID concerns heightened all across the state, how will things look different in 2021? We're talking to a member of the Association of Connecticut Fairs to find out. That's coming up right after this break.